market update. My name is Peter Falajima. I'm the team leader of Planbxpr by privilege, and I will look at the market wholesomely. Now, when we talk about the market, we talked about the global financial market. We want to talk about global financial market. It cuts across different instruments. Okay, we explore them. All right, so we don't get exploited by them. We explore them to make money and build our financials. Now, if you look at it, the world today, if you don't know how to maximize and leverage on the opportunity line in the global financial market, you just deny yourself a lot of things. And please let me tell us, if you are new, you are just joining us for the first time tonight, you're welcome. And all you need to understand is that we diversify. Number one thing is this. In the global financial market, we have three dimensions we explore it. Number one, we explore by investing into it. And are investing into the global financial market that by investing, buying into cryptocurrency, buying into stocks, which is the capital market, holding on to it. And there's something I need to let some of us know. If you are buying into stock, capital market, and sometimes most time people just buy stock and don't know the rudiment of how to maximize stock. Yeah, because now maximizing stock is not about just buying a stock and holding on to it. You can hold on to a stock and still be navigating the stock. Now, the secret I'm going to show to us tonight, and you will know that you have been missing a lot. And the same strategy we use in stock is what is applied to crypto, okay? Now, so the global financial market, as it were before, I'm moving to crypto. Another dimension is to look at the DXY. Now, DXY is the one of the basic, index that is correlated to different segment of the market or the instrument. However, there are some platforms or some instruments that have their divergence away from the US dollar index. We call it DXY. That is to measure the strength of US dollar. And now, so when you have different instruments or different commodities that are paired with dollar, now depending on the strength of dollar, if dollars is weakened or if dollar is strengthened, then you take the other opposite. Now, quite unfortunately, the macro level of information about the market is not always made available for all. And now for few that have advantage of having access to them, use it, of course. That's one thing you need to know. The type of information you have access to determine on how profitable you become in the global financial market. And that's one of the things. Now, I told us last week that we need to crash down and they'll continue to crash down on DXY. And the direct implication of this was that if you are trading currency, that is trading Forex, foreign exchange, you don't need to have too much knowledge. You need to understand basic things and, of course, ideology about the fundamentals. Now, logically speaking, either you know too many technical or not, you just need to plot 1 + 1 is equals to 2, and of course, 1 - 1 is equals to 0, and all of that. And that's one of the things. Now, the DXY is heavily now resting at the support level. Now, what do we expect this week? Now, it's not very good for DXY, however, but that nevertheless, because it has gotten to a point of interest, you probably want to see the DXY reacting to push up. Now, but if you couldn't have that push up, I would break this the low, then we'll have to step back to look at the DXY long-term history, all right? Long-term history to continue to get melting down for DXY. And if that can give us that, that's going to be lovely anyway. And that will now give you direct interpretation of whatever happens to DXY negatively, then it's your positive advantage for Euro USD. And this is what I always recommend for beginners. Now, I will tell you that if you're a beginner, the best I can recommend for you, you want to trade currency or foreign exchange and all of that, is to start trading with Euro USD. Why? Because of the volume and because of the spread. And of course, it's very, very easy to manage for a beginner. And that's why I recommend that no matter what happens. So if the DXY is going to continue coming down this week, then you still enjoy your up move of your Euro USD. Invariably, if it's going to go down to the all-time low of this season of 2021 or 2018, then that means you're going to find Euro USD up to 1.22611 region. I have my mark already here. Now we're breaking out of this point gradually, but unless and if that DXY had it let down to what I was telling us of its journey. And that's to show that we're going to have more move. If not, so this is what just holding, and probably we're going to rest on this point and have a bounce perhaps. If we cannot have that, I have my point at the floor level of DXY, which is about 89.188 from this week or to the end of this month. And so if that happens, then Euro USD, no problem, no issue, is to continue to have a continued up move for Euro USD. And then you're going to enjoy your trade. But take note, if you're going to have a pullback for DXY, then you should have a situation where this week or this probably beginning of this week, having Euro USD have a massive pullback to probably to the region of 1.146, 1.13, 142 region thereabout. And if this is broken, then we can return back to this point, which is about 1.12, 122, or 1.12, or 1.11268 as it were. Now, I'm showing us all of this so that you have an idea. Like I told us last week, that's what we're expecting. And whatever happened to Euro USD, then just copy and paste it to GBP USD. Very simple. The only difference is that the speed of movement may be different and the volatility may be different, but you can have the same bias. Whatever happened to Euro USD, that's the same bias you should have for GBP USD. The difference is that the movement will not be the same, but the direction will be the same. So you can have an idea because it's a direct correlation. All right. Now, what happened to Bitcoin? Now, Bitcoin is not finding it easy. And one of the things is that whatever happened to the stock market, then you can correlate to Bitcoin. An example, the US 30, which is the US 30 and the NASDAQ. All right. These are tech stocks around the world. And so when you have a massive pullback of them, then the same correlation you have to Bitcoin. All right. Now, why I'm showing all of this is so that when you start your new week, you want to look at what should I take advantage of? Where should I face right now? Now, I told us I'm probably going to move to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not having very, very easy. And Bitcoin is having a lot of buy volume, all right, and a sell volume at the same time. And one of the things, if you do not know today, one of the issues about Bitcoin is this. The movement of Bitcoin is moving around orders being placed on the future market. The future contract is one of the first things that make the market or the price movement of Bitcoin move anyhow, right? Then we have the buying volume of ETF will help the market to either liquidate all of those orders ahead. And so as we have right now, Bitcoin with the liquidity map, liquidation map, we're having Bitcoin always heading, trying to head in between. And in between word, for 24 hours, we're having a lot of volume for sell volume at about $106,500 region. And we have very much volume again at $104,482. And of course, down to 103,000. And you can have all in on a weekly chart up to as low as $95,000. Remember, we have a particular debt trap on Bitcoin at $93,000 that we've never grabbed eventually. So what are we looking at for Bitcoin? Well, a kind of maybe small movement of Bitcoin to crash down and eventually give us a head up, all right? So you have to be very careful about Bitcoin. You can maintain a trend of Bitcoin right now. You may maintain a kind of short buy and short close of the trade. And that's what then you need to know and pay attention to. Because look at it. Bitcoin movement, it actually giving a lot of headache for it because of the volume available on the top and the volume available at the bottom. So that means you can look at Bitcoin rather than looking for getting a very perfect trend for yourself right now. You'll be looking for Bitcoin probably to short Bitcoin, to 104,000, to 103, 100,000 region, and of course, pumping up. Now, what am I trying to say? You can hold a very strong position on Bitcoin. You can only short little and long little. So that's one of the things that we always recommend for people to use support and resistance strategy to find a buy, a sell, a buy, a sell. But to get a complete trend up and trend down right now. It's cumbersome for Bitcoin. That's what you can see. Now, we remember we told us, except we break above, of course, 111,000, 110,000. I was telling us last week when we're at, if you go back to the video and you watch and talk about Bitcoin, I think we're somewhere down at 102, 103. And I said, when we're going to be having up to Bitcoin, then we should be heading up to 110,000, which did happen. And of course, we got rejected. And so what we're having right now in Bitcoin on the high time frame, it's a lower high. And so that's very cumbersome. And the challenge we're going to have now, the break above below this 100,000 region for Bitcoin, that's going to be highly disastrous. So that means we're going to go to fetch the $93,000 and get a bounce from there. Okay. And if we're unable to do that, now that's the journey. Remember, the last journey we're trying to have to 73,000, and we had the journey back to 74,000. We couldn't kiss that 73,000. That may be looming. And I can tell you for free, that means gradually Bitcoin is unable to make it to what our target. But now Bitcoin crashing down to this region, if we need to have a bounce at 100,000, 99 to $100,000, and then we can move up a very good speed. You hear me right? A very good speed. But nevertheless, for break this, we still have this to play, which about 92,000 and 30,000, and that could form. So for this week, you got to be careful about Bitcoin and how you trade it. You can is very, very indecisive. Why? Because we have a lot of liquidation up and a lot of liquidation down. So you could see Bitcoin move aggressively down, and you think that this total crash. Be careful. That's not a total crash. That's a liquidity grab. And then they move up again, and then just as if the movement is now breaking out, and then we are up to the ballistic move, then Bitcoin again gets shorting because there's so much volume that needs to be cleared. So what am I telling us this week? Trade Bitcoin like a day trader and a scalper so that you don't get lost into a little momentum that will happen, and then you get lost into it. Very, very important. Because that's why if you look at it, we'll have some scanner that will look at Bitcoin, for instance. I have a lot of strategy for Bitcoin. Look at what it has been doing. So it has favored people who are like day traders, scalpers, and all of that, because the movement was not too very fantastic. Okay. So I have this scanner, I take the Bitcoin over here, take to the up limit and sell again to the down limit, another signal provided. And because last week it actually gave me the total sell down from this point. I think I was in a training and I was telling the fellow that look at what Bitcoin is telling us here. Right. Let's go here. Yeah, that was here. And I said, you know what Bitcoin is doing now? It actually falling down massively, and we have it continually, and now taking a sideways move and all of that for Bitcoin. So coming down of Bitcoin is not going to be surprising, probably to sweep the liquidity again, like I told you, 103,000, 104, and up to 102,000. Worst case scenario, we don't want to crash below 99,000 and of course 100,000. So if we're able to have that, then we continue, because all these points you're looking at, they are liquidity, okay? Except that if Bitcoin crosses above 106,000, then we can rally back again. These are liquidity up here at 108,000 and another liquidity at 110,000. Get a sweep again, we crash down, or we come to sweep all of those liquidity, and then before we move up. So anything you are doing on Bitcoin, you got to be very careful and look at taking little move. Don't stay, oh, Bitcoin, I want to have how much thousand before I close the market. You'll be disappointed because there's so much liquidity at the bottom and at the same time at the top. Do you get it? Now, if I look at Bitcoin and some other cryptocurrencies, probably you look at some small pumping and dumping will be happening in the market and all of that. You know, perhaps to look at Bitcoin. Let's look at Bitcoin trend movement. Look at it. So you can see the lower time frame, Bitcoin actually have not momentum, but actually having a kind of maybe more activities of selling volumes, as it were, on 15 minutes, on 30 minutes, and all of that. Quite looking through Bitcoin, having a different pattern. Okay, let's go. Let's go. What's going on? Let's go, everybody. Okay, many minutes. Okay, so I'll just let the AI give me an outcome of Bitcoin. So in a nutshell, scalpers are actually getting more momentum or activities with Bitcoin right now than you that want to have a full activities, okay? Last candle, close price analysis, and all of that coming over here. Okay, and all of that. So let me just go back to this. Like I told us, the Bitcoin we have to continue to go sideways and dump. And then before we can have a nice pump because there are so many liquidity to be grabbed downstairs there. Now let's look at the other markets, the gold, most of us who trade and they're building our portfolio. Remember last week we talked about gold and now we're advancing to break out the roof, in heading up to 3,600 region. And now, but you need to have that broken. And we saw how long we stayed sideways on gold. Now, that's not to give overjoy, right? Because we have that sideways and it's put out, and again, another expansion down, up. And now we have another expansion, but we have this to contend with, except we're able to break that. So we have too high to contend with for us to continue a massive movement of gold. But take us, there was a macro connection to this massive move for 3 days last week was because of the crisis. Now, so I told us fundamentally on the macro level, what trend gold? Number one, policies, and number two, crisis, right? So gold trend more, especially in fundamental activities when there are crises and when there are policies, economic policies change and all of that, you have gold get to trend. Now, gold does not crash anyhow anyway, but of course, when market traders are doing most things about gold, until it finishes all the wave and then it go back to the resting point and now begin to ticken, then you get more worse and the experience trading gold at those times because you wouldn't know where gold is actually going to. But right now, we have this to contend with for this week. If we have a rejection at the market opening today, then that means we're going to have a reversal of gold, perhaps with over how much pips from where it is right now, maybe down to about giving us about 560 pips for gold. That is if we have a nice rejection for gold at that point, right? So you're going to have about 500 something pips of gold reversal. And if that does not happen, then we want to compete and contend with breaking of those regions and all of that. If not, you look at gold returning down to giving us about 560 pips, thereabout, down to something. All right. Now, I'm just telling us this ahead of time. If we could not actually break a reasonable point for gold, and then that means we're going to be selling gold as much as possible, right? Down to $3,380 region and all of that. And that's what I'm expecting. But we have to look at this point to be rejected this week. So that means you cannot just switch into the market. You want to see the reaction of the market opening tonight and then see the nice rejection of gold, which means you're looking at this point for gold to have a nice rejection, right? So that could give us now a liquidity sweep over here, and then we can now trend down for gold, probably having a support at this point or returning down to as crazy as this point. But nevertheless, now if you have a sweep down of gold, that means we're contending with this point, which means we're looking at Monday, Tuesday to Wednesday to generate over 600 pips around. And then once we're able to break and retest that, 3,600 region was my target for gold before we have a total crash, eventually anyway. Okay, so if you're a trader of gold, then you should know what to do and what to tell yourself and advise yourself for gold trading right now. So just like I said, Bitcoin, we should be having more of kind of sideways and a crash because of liquidity available down there and all of that. So here is gold. Can see so much rejection and some kind of level of support at 3,375 region. Remember, I told you now, if you're measuring from that point downward here now, so that's about 500 and something pips, right? 560 to 570 pips. Now, if it's going to have another worst case scenario, that's going to give you about 900 pips. I love to target, I shoot up my point and arrow of making more pips on gold rather than wasting my energy, to other instruments that are going to waste too much of my time. But please, nevertheless, for the fact that gold can give you a lot of pips, if you don't know what you're doing per time, you're going to waste all your resources on gold as much as possible. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at super liquidity above the opening, then we should be looking at for sell. And then if we're able to break out and retest, then we're looking for to buy. But that journey of buying may not be too long because it has another liquidity to contend above here. So better we sweep this liquidity and have a nice downward, then a push up eventually, maybe towards the end of the week. Remember, I told us that when gold have a crash at the beginning of the month, of the week, then you have a close long or bullish at the end of the week, right? Just like here, beginning of the week, at the end of the week, we have the crash, beginning of the week, then eventually crash, right? Pump, then this finishes. This, if you can't have a pullback, then that's going to be a wonderful one. But if you have a pullback back to this point, which is 3375, 3380, now that's going to be a very nice one because that will create another wave for us to shoot up eventually. Okay. So, but stay alert, those of us who are trading, and then I'm sure if you can curtail yourself as much as possible, you can maximize the opportunity there, all of that. So now for crypto, like I said, we have a lot of coins that did well last week, but eventually the market was not plumbing backward and all of that. Let's look at fat coin. But no matter what any coin want to do in the week, and Bitcoin have a different message that's going to be very crazy for such coin not to fulfill, their journey, okay? Because Bitcoin, it's the roadmap for virtually every coin, right? So a Bitcoin decide to go otherwise, then no matter what those coin want to do, it's going to be very crazy for it. If not like fat coin right now, so look at the fat coin. Yeah, fat coin just showed bullish, and I'm sure it must have been pumping. Let me quickly look at fat coin. Yeah, fat coin. Fat coin. Excuse me. Okay. Fat coin, fat coin. Let's clearly look at fat coin. Okay, so this is fat coin. Yeah, okay. So just look at what I was telling you guys. That no matter what any coin want to prove, of course, which is for scalpers will have been enjoying fat coin anyway, and then if you have a place to trade it. Now, but look at just like what I was telling us, fat coin tried to take a move, and then Bitcoin say, no, I'm crashing. So why will you pump? Can you see the Bitcoin we're just talking about right now? While we're talking about Bitcoin, can you see what we're just doing right now? So that means to say, that's to tell you that no matter what any coin want to do this week, as far as Bitcoin is going to be dragging down, then those coins will be affected. And that's exactly what's happening now. And so sometimes you can have a very good data, but of course, overall, going to create a lot of problem. And so this is fat coin that ordinarily supposed to have a nice pump, but unfortunately, Bitcoin journey is going to be affecting it journey, unfortunately for fat coin. Okay. This is, let's go here. Take over another coin. Aerodrome pumped the other day. Yeah, Aerodrome pumped the other day from how many cent to okay, it was April that was from 30 something point dollar. Yeah, okay, June 6th was at $50 to something. So I know there was a massive pump on Aero. Yeah, Aero. Sorry, sometime when you want to buy a coin and the condition of the market are not too favorable, there's a need for you to just respect yourself, okay? So you wait for appropriate time and all of that rather than jumping into some of those markets. And so you can see, so what happening to most of these coins now is because of Bitcoin retracement. And so fine and good, what do you want to do? You want to be very careful about any coin, except some of those coins that actually have a downtime for a very long time. And then when Bitcoin is crashing, and BNB normally have the culture when a Bitcoin is crashing and you want to find its way up and all of that. So, but quite unfortunate, right now, it's equally dumping, okay? So like I told us, the Bitcoin have a lot of liquidation at the bottom and now had to be, finding its way down and all of that, or going sideways for some time and then pump again. So even if it pump again, it has all of this liquidity to contend with and crash down again. So that's to say, for anyone who is trading Bitcoin, so you wouldn't do so much, maybe just like 1% move and again, dump again, as it were. You get it? So that's exactly what's happening right now because Bitcoin likely find a buy again at $104,976, $79, and then pump it up again, and then you have another crash and all of that. But you wouldn't want to waste too much energy of such in your trading because that will actually affect your psychology depending on what trading strategy you have been employing in your market, right? So that's why I'm just telling us that Bitcoin, you have to watch, of course, market close tonight and then open tomorrow morning, and for you to be able to find appropriate entry and all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't have any coin to give to us tonight, but just to tell us that the market is what it is. And we have a lot of factors impeding the movement of Bitcoin. So sideways move is so much expected for Bitcoin as it were right now. And of course, more crashing for Bitcoin eventually, right? So because if you don't know what you're doing, market can induce you to take a level into the market and eventually get a crazy hit down. Except some exceptional tokens can be creating a lot of journey. Let's look at this coin. Which one is this? Wham. All right, so sudden pump of how many minutes? Let's say it's 15 minutes, 1 hour. So these are funny coins, okay? So you probably may not rely on them. Okay, QNT, NPC, which one is this? So these are just pumping NPC. NPC, okay. So these are just pump and dump actions and all of that. That was a massive pump and that's a massive dump. And especially when they were doing their pumping and Bitcoin just have a very crazy crash. So imagine 17% pump within 15 minutes. And Bitcoin have a massive crash. So no matter what pump you're doing, so as Bitcoin have a massive crash, you're going to have issues with some of those pump, except for major crypto, QNT, okay, against Bitcoin. Okay, there you go for this. Okay. Okay, well, I can't find a coin that to give to us because like I've told us as far as Bitcoin is hitting down, No coin will be able to hit up anyhow and all of that. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, someone say, okay, sir, start trading this coin. Is this power opportunity for these coins? Market have not dumped, so you can't say you have a buy opportunity. Yeah, so most time when you buy a coin, you probably will be buying coin at the wrong hour. And so when a little shake happen, then you're going to be having issues. Oh, I bought so coin and the whole market is dumping and all of that. But yeah, so but you have to know, like I was trying to tell us again about what's it called? I was trying to tell us again about stock market. There are some persons when they buy stock and they complain that the stock market, like I remember I've been recommending some stock for some persons, and they say, never in my life, I will never buy Nigerian stock. I say, you lie, because you do not understand the strategy involved in buying Nigerian stock. Yeah. And say what you were buying at the wrong time. And then even when you buy, you don't know when there's equilibrium and at the same time ultimate high of such stock. Now there's a secret in stock market, for instance. I'm just using an example that you buy a stock and hold it for 10 years does not make you a billionaire in the stock. But there's something you must learn how to do in between while you are holding. There's something in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. Somebody buy Bitcoin for how many years? Fine, you can make money. But do you really know when the cycle is ending and when the cycle is beginning? These are knowledge. These are information. Now, for instance, in the stock market, you buy a particular stock and the stock was doing well. I remember recommending for people to buy MTN, right? When they said tariff was going to be increased and MTN price was plumbing down, the shares was plumbing down, and it came down to 169 naira per share. And I told a lot of people, I said, buy stock, buy MTN stock right now. And they're like, why will I buy? Now, before the dividend are shared, in the stock calculation, there's something they do most time. Maybe some in the window period of where you already qualify for dividend. Maybe you already qualify for dividend for in the next 30 days or in the next 60 days. That's the next 2 months, as far as you are holding this stock, anytime, irrespective of where you are holding the stock, if 1 year you have been holding it, and you get to that particular month when they are calculating dividend, and you have the stock, they calculate your dividend. Now, another person, maybe few days to calculating dividend, he's having the stock. They will calculate his dividend based on the volume of stock he has. Now, after they have calculated the dividend, you understand the stock cycle. And you know, dividend is going to be paid after some time at this period and all of that. And of course, people will sell, make money and all of that. So you expect the price of that stock to come down. So for that, you now say, okay, I'm selling this stock. Maybe I'm selling MTN at 350 naira per shares. And then the one I've sold, which is per capital growth, you have taken that money and buy another shares. And that shares, they are going to share dividend in the next how many days, or in how many weeks, or how many months. In the next 1 month, they'll be calculating dividend to be paid. And then you're buying that shares. Now, in buying that shares, at that point, maybe it's Lasaco, right? Then that shares, they're about to calculate their own, and then you buy into it. And in buying to it, after the shares calculation, because you already qualify for the dividend of the MTN, you remove the money, you are not bothered. And then the next thing come to the SACO, and after some time, the price move up and they calculate, and then you see qualify or the price movement of that LASACO. Now, so not having just I buy a share or I buy Bitcoin or I buy one cryptocurrency, I'm holding and all of that. There are a whole lot of things to do when you buy a coin and in the process, because every of those coins have what we call cycle. Are you able to understand the cycle? Now, many of you, I told people to buy this coin, Labubu. Labubu did well, and when it was retracing down, I gave a signal that people should buy when it plumbed down here. How many of you knew that Labubu returned back to 18 million on its price? 18 million on the capital, what do they call it? Market cap. And after 18 million, look at it, Labubu went back to 58 million again. Now, if you do not understand all of this, you could buy the coin. Yes, those of us who are bought for long, we're still in much profit. Now, this is about 178% now of this same Labubu. Now, how many days ago? And then this is a retracement, and Labubu again about to find its way journey up. I'm just using an example, as Labubu and all of that. So, but most time people complain, but we don't pay attention to basic learning and know how things behave at a given time. Now, this is the same Labubu now. How much? The cap now is 37 million from 18 million that they plumbed down, 17 million, this 7 million. That's already 100% for whoever they bought. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's important to pay attention to learning. Those of us who are trading Forex and all of that, promo is still going on 60% promo on Traded Mastery. We've told you if you want to join us now trading on Forex, what you need to do, register on CapitalXtend, fund your account with as low as $100, join us, and then you have access to signals. Not only that, we're working on so many things that people can have access to some of those scanners we have. This is what I have for us tonight. And this week, let's work out. If you have any questions,